Okay.
Okay, Mark, Gene Tinkin has a motion to sell ABAT.
I'll support that.
So it's seconded, huh? Okay, so I assume that's all 2,000 shares since it's such a low stock price. We're talking about just $4,000. And we'll consider it seconded. Anybody else have any comments? And I'll just repeat my urging that, again, we don't need to sell it. The company has no debt, and I'd really like to see us hang on to it because I could see this company at $4 or $5.
Herb, your hand went up again, so go on, Herb.
Yeah, I'd like to see hear what you've got to say about this particular stock, Ken, being a shell company.
Well, the information is extremely confusing, and it's being put out there by a lot of bloggers, a lot of shorts. But if you listen to the predominant voice out there, the predominance of the discussion seems to indicate that the company might not even exist, that it probably doesn't exist, that it's a company owned by another company, owned by a third company, and it goes 4 layers deep. Now, that's my take on what I've been reading. Mark, have you been doing some of the readings of these things?
Yeah, I've been looking at it a little bit, and again, the only way to really confirm it, in fact, I think I'm one of the people who wrote that a month ago, where I compared it to the movie Boiler Room, and it'd be interesting to go and see what that New York address even looks like. But here's something that somebody shared with me this morning. There's a scene in the movie Boiler Room, for those of you that haven't seen it, where they go and they look through the window, and all it is a couple dusty desks with a couple disconnected phones. You know, the company that they're theoretically investing in. This actually showed up on Seeking Alpha a couple days ago. For those of you that are not familiar, seekingalpha.com can be a really interesting place, but it's also a place where you have to kind of watch yourself and protect yourself in the clinches, because there actually are people out there who will write things nasty about companies because they work on the short selling side of things, where they're trying to force prices to go down. So it's kind of a bit of the nastiness, but this goes into some of the details and questions that Ken is asking about. Again, I have not dug into it in any details. There's
Mark, that chart I found extremely interesting that you zipped over. You might want to just let folks take a look at that chart real quickly. There we go. Yeah. And this is where I got lost, because it seems to be a company within a company within a company.
Yeah, we actually, that's not that unusual. There were some related party transactions that are kind of nasty here, potentially nasty, I should say. What I find interesting is that it's covered so predominantly by even Value Line. Value Line doesn't have an alert or anything out on it. That's wild, and you know, it's a company that's a little bit of a roller coaster, but there's nothing here that indicates any heartburn, or there's no they haven't rendered an opinion of some of the stuff that's out there in the news right now, and I find that kind of unusual.
Well, I think this is one of those stocks that if you don't know anything about the company, you shouldn't be investing in it.
Yeah, me too. You know, the numbers in the SEC filings are all nice and pretty, but there seems to be a question on whether those are numbers that mean anything. To me, this is a total gamble, this stock.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly how I look at it.
Mark, I'll share a humorous story. The club that I've been in for a long time has chosen twice in its history to speculate. Once in 1999, where we took $1,000 and speculated with a company and lost every single penny of it. And again, about 4 months ago, where we took a prize that we had won in the stock pickers contest up here in Michigan, and we put our prize money, we put all of it into ABAT, and within 2 weeks we had lost half of the money already. I guess the lesson is, if the wolves are speculating, move out of town quickly. So.
Well, it's a fascinating area to look into, and again, my argument is we're not speculating blind as long as we're using that chart. And again, we don't know what we can believe here. They don't have any depth, guys.
Okay, and Mark, you do have a
You
motion.
don't know that, Mark. I mean, you don't know anything from these numbers, basically.
Well, again, when they could be lying to us, we know that.
You do have a motion on the floor, Mark, to sell everything, and it was seconded.
Okay, and no other comments?
No other comments. Oh, wait, here we go. Jim Gleason says, on flyer stock like ABAT is where trailing stop-loss order is placed when the purchase might protect the capital.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
Mike Armour says that it's just not worth selling. We have nothing left but upside on the stock. That's a variation of one of my favorite phrases, how low can it go? And Mike, I'll tell you, it can go to zero.
Well, it can. This company could disappear from the planet, but again, unless they're lying to us, they don't have debt, and that's a major consideration in these situations.
John Kimmel is asking, who are the auditors? John, it's a Chinese company, and I would imagine they're using Chinese auditors.
Oh, yeah. This one is so much fun. All right, let's go ahead and call the question if you're ready with the poll, Lori.
Yep, all set.
It'll be interesting to see how this one goes because, again,
Mark, I'm sorry, go on.
I'm from the mindset that, how low can it go? I mean, we're there.
Mark, while the poll's going on, Nancy Buffet would like to know why she's not seeing a pre-tax profit line on the SSGs you're showing.
I have never actually displayed the pre-tax profit on my SSGs, only at gunpoint. So it's just a personal.
So you've deliberately gone in and just zeroed out the data then, correct?
Either that or I just move it off the visible scale.
Okay. Joe McCarthy, I hope not the Joe McCarthy, is telling us that hcg.to is home capital group. And Joe, you've never heard that before, I know, but I just had to take a shot. hcg.to is home capital group. Herb, that's the name of the company that you were looking for. Home Capital Group.
We'll do some homework on that one.
And then Mark, we keep cycling back to Ann's issue. She put in one share for each of the stocks on that list. You might show everybody how you could create a list that starts with $100 and still will then show you the growth in what's going on.
Okay, yeah, we'll take care of that as we close down.
Mark, Joe is making the point that that company that Herb mentioned is a savings and loan very similar to HCBK.
Okay.
And that's Hudson City Bank, HCBK is.
It's not a good thing to be similar to right at the moment.
Yeah, I know people that would say it's rarely a good thing.
Herb, if you could reply in the question box, is this the company that we spoke about this weekend when we did Let's Talk Stocks? Because if so, that company, that Canadian company, was cmg.to.
Well, I'm leaving the voting open because it's not coming out the way I want.
Oh.
I hope that people know that yes is the opposite of what yes means we should sell this.
And Herb is telling me we did both. Thanks a lot, Herb. Thank you.
Yeah, in future polls, Lori, you should probably do sell and hold instead of yes and no.
Yeah. Anyway, people say by 56% to 44%, they say to keep it.
Well, that's kind of weird, but again,
Yeah.
I think this is I throw this into the category of non-core, guys, and I would jump out of my skin to sell it at $3 or $4 a share,
Mark, Faith Fessenden is saying, okay, Red Leader, why do you not put pre-tax profit on your stock selection guide? Or is that another webinar completely?
It is another webinar, but I can give you a quick look. And how are we doing on questions and stuff, Ken? Are we...
Oh, now Sandy Castor wants to buy 1,000 shares of ABAT.
Well, interesting. Here's why, and this is in a nutshell why I leave it off. I mean, the stock selection guide does all that you need it to do. You don't need that third line. The difference between that second line that you guys want to put in there and the third line is simply the tax rate. And when we think of analyzing companies, we really spend all of our attention on first that top line, and second that bottom line. And then the really neat thing about doing it this way is the difference between those two lines is the profitability of the company over time, the amount of space between those two lines. So again, graphing section 2A doesn't do anything for you, and it's actually a redundant concept. And in fact, in some cases, it could be a misleading concept, but we don't have time to go into that. So that's why I do it that way.
Okay, Mark, before we get to Sandy Castor's motion, we had a motion in front of hers from Jim Gleason, and Jim would like to double up on the Synaptics holdings. So his motion is to buy 300 shares of Synaptics, and he says he likes their position in touchscreen technology.
Yeah, and that's a company that you have actually featured before also, Ken, isn't that correct?
Yes, it is.
And I can't remember. Go ahead.
Do we have a second for that motion from Jim Gleason? 300 shares of Synaptics. You can either raise your hand or type it in the question box. There's a second from John Kimmel, Mark, so we can have discussion.
Okay. Well, this is a company. I'll try to pull up the SSG, Ken, if you want to give a little bit of background on your work with the company.
Yeah, this company is the giant in the room when it comes to touchscreen technology. They're working on all kinds of touchscreens. In fact, right now they're working on touchscreens that will work with the entire body, and where you won't even have to touch the screen anymore, where the screen will pick up motions from anywhere on the body and interpret them in different ways. The problem with Synaptics is that its products, many times after it does all the research and development, its products are copied by other players in the field, and there are a lot of knockoffs. Admittedly, they're inferior knockoffs. They don't work quite as well, but they're picked up by the people that don't put out the highest quality whatever the gadget happens to be. So there's a huge amount of competition in this field, and if you look at the profit margins for Synaptics, you'll notice that they're really doing a lot of fighting to try to keep their profit margins healthy right now. And of course,
that's what you see there, basically.
Yeah. There just is a fantastic amount of competition, but there's no doubt from anybody that you read about the company that this is the player, the people that are doing all the research, all the development. Morningstar questions, what will happen if they can't continue to make the next discovery in the area.
Yeah, it is an area that's pretty ripe with competition, and it's been around long enough that it's vulnerable to patent exposure, as Ken was describing.
Yeah, but, Mike Armour wants to know. Yeah, Mike Armour wants to know, do we know how much Japanese exposure there is to that company? And Mike, I don't actually own this stock, and I only followed it for a roundtable, so no, I don't have the answer to that.
They must have some, though, because in the value line synopsis that you see there, they do call out Japan. Of course, they say China, Taiwan, Korea, Japan. So at least it's a component for sure.
you'll notice that Atmel in that first paragraph is giving it significant competition. I don't normally read a paragraph as, this one's a pretty negative final paragraph in value line. Maybe you want to scroll down and let people read that final paragraph, Mark. Value line's not usually that negative about a growth company.
Yeah, and these guys are pretty good at what they do, and it is very competitive. It's the type of situation where I think as an investor you really have to resign yourself to some volatility. Yeah, when I say volatility, I mean even on the operating side.
I will answer John Snodgrass. John says, "Are they a one-product company?" And that's definitely not true. They're maybe a single. If you think that interacting between the human and the electronic device is a single product, then yes, they are a single product, but they've been dealing with cutting-edge ways for humans to interact with machines now, and they're at the forefront of developing all different ways for people to interact. Think about the ways you used to interact with machinery in the 50s and 60s, and it used to be put your finger out and then turn it clockwise in a dial, and then you switched to pushing buttons, and then you started to play with a mouse perhaps, and then you went to a touchpad, and now we're at touch screen technology, and Synaptics is way ahead of us in the whole thing. They're they're working on screens right now for full body interaction.
Yeah, and it is an interesting area. And in fact, on a personal side, my wife works for a gentleman who in his days just after college was involved in the invention of touchscreen. And he eventually went on to work for Motorola, and now is at Chrysler. But, what a fascinating field. And for those of you that are movie people, there's a Michael Douglas movie with Demi Moore where they actually have a few scenes of operating a three-dimensional version of some of the stuff that these guys are working on. Neat stuff. Well, I think
Mark,
that's probably enough unless we have any other comments.
The question log is clear and there's no hands up, so you can call the question on this.
Let's go ahead and call the question if Lori's ready. And this is to either buy or...
This is buy 300 shares, Mark.
300 shares of Synaptics.
Yep. And then, Mark, the final motion while we're sitting waiting for the poll, the final motion is from Sandy Castor to buy 1,000 shares of ABAT. And if somebody would like to help us out, if there's going to be a second, you can make it now in the question box.
I think Mike Armour seconded that one, Ken.
Did you do that already? Thanks, Lori.
Yeah.
See, there are some riverboat gamblers out there.
We also have a comment from Joe McCarthy, Mark, that HMC, the company that Herb was talking about, can be purchased over the counter as HMCBF.PK.
Okay, that's where I'll find it. Okay, thank you.
Did you catch those letters again?
I got it.
All right.
Okay, I think we have 81% on this one, and we have 59% say don't buy and 41% say buy.
Okay, so that fails to pass.
Yeah.
I believe that's for the second month in a row that fails to pass. It's interesting to see.
We have a humorous comment from Mike Higgins, Mark. Mike says he's heard of throwing his hat in the ring, but he just doesn't think you should throw your shorts in as well.
Now, Mike, it depends on whether they're on fire or not. I mean, that's where it comes down. So we have a fifth motion. It's a seconded motion to accumulate 1,000 shares of Advanced Battery Technologies. Fascinating. And I don't think we need to beat that around anymore. We spent a lot of time discussing it. So, Lori, whenever you're ready, you can release that poll also.
That's what we just voted on, Mark.
Oh, no, we just voted on
1,000 shares of ABAT.
Oh, that was Synaptics. Boy, I'm really behind myself here. Okay, you're right.
See, I think they got yes and no mixed up on the other question here.
Well, we'll have to take a shot at it next month because we won't be able to tell. So again, if you're voting to accumulate, to add would be yes for
And then
ABAT.
Mark, Laura Scott is giving us a site for some good information on ABAT, and for those of you that want to write it down, it's variantviewresearch.com. Variant, V-A-R-I-A-N-T, view research, all one word, .com /? P as in pig equals 141.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that's actually shown up on Seeking Alpha also.
Right.
And I believe there's some affiliation there with the short-selling hedge fund, so it's something to be aware of. I'll track that down and provide that link on Challenge Club forum.
I will tell everybody that my wife really likes Seeking Alpha, but she's very careful to do some Google searching on the people that she's reading, just trying to find out if they're associated with anything else on the web. Sometimes she finds some very interesting things out about them, and therefore discounts what they're writing in their Seeking Alpha article. So you might want to just do a little bit of searching for the authors of these articles. A little bit of just upper level research sometimes helps.
Yeah, I would compare it to kind of like, when your kids would come to you with a story and you always knew that there was another story that needed to be heard. And then you have to make the decision and make the call based on hearing both sides of that story, and that's kind of what applies here too, I think.
Well, here's our schizophrenic results, because we have 78% saying no way should we buy any more of this, and only 22% say buy.
Only 22% are riverboat gamblers, huh? Okay.
Yep.
Mark, Laura is also comment that on that site that she just told us about, that ABAT is actually responding. So there's actually some stuff written by folks from the company responding to some of the things too. So that might be very interesting reading.
So it could be like watching a cat fight. Could be good. All right. Well, we'll close down with just demonstrating the one other thing that was mentioned. I'm going to go ahead and save tonight's to the original version of the dashboard, and what Ken wanted me to demonstrate was the ability to, I'm just going to say watch list challenge for right now. And Ken was making the point that you can actually enter $100 worth of, and I'm just going to throw Strayer, Aeropostale, and Intel just for demonstration purposes at this. And this is what Ann was suggesting, is to take that list of deep value stocks, build one of these dashboards, and you'll see that it's instantaneously built with $100 worth of each stock. And the shares that are required to produce $100. So this becomes a watch list that you can now follow. And obviously, if Aeropostale was up to 110 next month and Intel was down at 90, you'd be able to tell how that particular stock had performed individually versus the time of purchase at $100. So it's a really neat thing to be able to do with watch lists. And I'll throw one together and attach it to the notes on this session.
What's also very interesting, Mark, from my point of view, when I put some of these lists into these kind of dashboards, is this sector diversification chart that comes out right beneath it. And the reason that I like it is that I like to see which sectors are rising to the top of some of these specialized kinds of lists. And I do notice, over time there's sector rotation. So it's very interesting a lot of times to figure out what sectors are really crying for the money at the in a matter of speaking.
Mm-hmm. Getting frisky, so to speak.
That's cool.
All right, so with that, I'm showing you we're at 9:39, so we're a couple minutes over, but we can hang out for a couple questions, but we'll officially adjourn, and thank everybody for being here. We'll hang out for another couple of minutes to see if anybody has any last second comments, but thanks everybody for participating. I apologize for Lori calling you guys schizophrenic, but Just goes with the turf around here. You never know what they're going to call me around here. So,
Yeah.
again,
Mark,
I wish everybody a happy Easter and have some fun. so I'll just vote.